using stories to elevate or extinguish your career? Welcome to the Own Your BS show, the place where we help you to strengthen connections, conquer challenges, and claim your messages. I'm Cindy Tian, and in this episode, we'll be diving into the power of connecting through stories. And with me today is none other than my co-host, Joe Augustin. And if you don't know him, where the hell have you been? Okay, he has been around for a very, very long time. He has told his audiences at least 60,000 different stories over 3 decades while he was on radio. He also is an MC and speaker, and not only does he present, he also coaches his clients as a presentation and story coach, helping his clients to refine their stories and tell their stories with power, poise, and purpose. So he's the best person to be here today, and it gives me such pleasure to welcome you, Joe.
Well, hi, Cindy. Thanks for having me on.
I'm so glad to have you here. And you know, Joe, every time I think of you, it actually reminds me of a good 20 to 30 years ago when I was probably a late teenager, early adult, and I remember listening to you a lot when you were on Class 95, The Morning Express, with Glenn Ong, and at some point with Flying Dutchman. And I remember listening to your voice, and one of those moments where I really kind of fell in love with your voice was, I remember feeling that you sounded like a bit like Wizard of Oz.
Oh, really?
Deep and powerful like Wizard of Oz, and yet smooth and sleek like dark chocolate. So I've been dying to ask you, what's the story behind you developing this signature voice of yours?
Like all good things in the arts, you actually start by imitating. So you actually, I was actually drawn very much to the voices that I had heard on the radio. I liked Casey Kasem. I liked Shadow Stevens. I liked the guy who did all the voiceover trailers, you know, at the time, In a World and all that kind of stuff. And I was doing my best imitations of that. Wow. And the good thing is if you keep doing something, you actually wind up creating your own version. So when people talk to me about doing stuff and saying I want to be like someone, I say, yeah, go ahead, be like them. And if you increase your skills and your artistry around it, you'll end up being not so close. You'll actually, because no one's a perfect mimic. And the other thing is, if you're great at mimicry, then you have a whole different potential as well, which is fun.
It's a different skill and style altogether.
Yeah. So I'm someone who likes to tell people, you know what, don't worry about being original, because at the beginning you're not good enough to be original.
It's so tough, right, to say that, hey, we want to be original. Sometimes we don't even know what originality means when we haven't figured out and tested enough things.
Well, I'll tell you some of the things that I've heard described as super creative and original, right? Are basically just things that person they didn't hear about beforehand, right? So there are lots of things which are like, oh, this is so amazing, it's so great. It's just that you didn't know it existed before. Some of the techniques that I teach or whatever it is, I mean, they're literally hundreds, maybe even thousands of years old. But yeah, if you haven't heard it before, it's brand new.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we are going to be talking about that as well, you know, when we go to storytelling. And I'm just thinking about, while you were mastering your signature voice, I was trying to master probably public speaking. And this was about 12 years ago when I started going into training, speaking and coaching. And I remember, oh gosh, one of my very first workshops, I was supposed to sort of train a group of student care executives in professional image. And it was like my very first paid gig. And I remember I was kind of armed with my stoic black jacket, my laptop, and I probably had like 147 slides. Yeah. But I felt that I was confident because I was prepared, right? And I was kind of trained in public speaking in that sense. So I went in with all my swagger and I thought I was going to crush it.
Okay.
But 30 minutes into the session, I realized that the only thing I was crushing is people's will to live, because there was this guy sitting right in front. So they were all quite young people, probably in their 20s. And this guy, after a while, he started taking out his mobile phone. And I was peeping at what he's doing, and he started playing Candy Crush. So he played all the way when I was kind of doing that training. I think he must have reached level 87.
Wow.
And the reason why I know is because he came to me, showed me his phone and said, "Thank you, teacher, for the gaming time." So that was a little bit of a nightmare because I thought I would do so well, right? But I ended up not doing well. And I realized, after kind of reflecting on it, I really kind of crushed their interest to listen. I had a mentor there with me. She gave me some feedback and she said that the three things that I was really missing is there's no audience engagement, there were no learner activities, and the most important thing she said was that there were no stories at all, no compelling stories to make people care about the topic that you're talking about. Yeah, and I remember her saying something like, facts live in our head, but stories go into our hearts. And we've heard things like that.
Yeah.
So I really want to ask you, because I know you're an expert in storytelling. So why is storytelling so important and what makes it important?
All right, so storytelling is ultimately important in communication because when messages land on someone's ears, into their minds, they actually land not just anywhere, but they actually land in what someone's described as story-shaped holes. Because that's how we interpret the world, right? We don't just say, this, I see that. You actually see this and that, and then you figure out some sort of relationship and what happened there, where does it go. So we're actually designed to work in story form. You know, a cup on a table, at the moment you walk into a room, you don't just go, there's a cup on the table, you form a whole story about what's there, who put it there, did I do this? You go through a number of things. So we're actually designed for stories, right? So when you decide not to use stories because you think the facts matter, well, you run a risk because then people can actually just do whatever they want with the story. So maybe your early lessons with that class, you're probably delivering a lot of useful information, but because you wouldn't direct them in certain ways because of the stories that would help you do that, they just form their own little thing, you know. Yeah.
It becomes like we form the meaning and like, why should I care about this, right?
Yeah.
And I like what you're saying because very often a lot of people think that storytelling might be a little bit of a fluffy, a little bit of woo-woo thing. But I just want to talk about how this is even kind of important in business and in our careers as well. So a few fascinating stats that I found, and we can do play a quick quiz with our viewers and, if you can play along with us. So I'm just going to ask you some questions, okay? And we can guess, okay? So number one, when Nike started using their storytelling in their marketing approach instead of just product features, what percentage did their market share jumped to from 18%? Just make a guess. A, 23%, B, 33%, or C, 43%?
Well, I'm going to have to go at 43% because the other ones are not dramatic enough.
And you're right. They more than doubled their market share by just switching from features to storytelling. Okay. Number two, so audience, feel free to join us as well. Which global beverage brand's holiday storytelling became so powerful, their Christmas ads have become a global tradition? A, Pepsi, B, 7-Up, and C, Coca-Cola.
Well, I've got to say I knew the answer right at the start, but yes, Coca-Cola, yes.
Absolutely. They've become so much of a holiday tradition since the 1930s. So, three, in a Princeton brain study, and I think you talked about that earlier already. So, in a Princeton brain study, what did researchers discover happens when people hear an engaging story? A, they process information faster. B, they create new neural pathways. And C, it syncs with the storyteller's brain.
Well, that's a mixed one, actually, because B and C are actually both
kind of
correct.
related.
Yeah, both correct. Yeah.
The answer to this, when I did my reading, was syncs with the storyteller's brain. So apparently when somebody tells a story, we actually start to connect emotional Wi-Fi. I thought that was very interesting. And I kind of want to lean into this thing about telling our stories versus telling other people's stories. So I do train people in storytelling and public speaking as well. And what I've noticed is that people will come to me and say, I don't have my own stories. My life is boring. I want to use other people's stories. So I have people who say, can I use the story of Steve Jobs and use the story of Oprah Winfrey? So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, first of all, I can explain the simple idea. I'm about to do a mansplaining thing, but
please do. It's mansplaining time.
We have what we call mirror neurons. The mirror neuron basically is why that happens. The phenomenon you talked about, right? As I'm telling you my story, you begin to feel like me because we are like that. So as we talk and we're becoming in rapport, for instance, we're going to start adopting each other's timing a little bit. We'll nod at the same time. We'll do little things that become a literal mirror of each other physically, but emotionally as well. That's happening, right? So the question about using other people's stories, I'm actually fine with that, right? But I think you need to know how to tell a story. If you want to tell the Steve Jobs story, you've got to know how to tell the Steve Jobs story. So I do use Steve Jobs stories in the training that I do. The flip side, which is like, do you need to use personal stories? I would say only if they fit the task at hand, right? You can't just bring a story which you found is an interesting story that people stop to listen to you and try and drag it around wherever you go. So I won't mention the minister I saw who was doing this, right? He's on stage and he begins to tell this story. I won't place exactly all the details in place. I'll just say there were mushrooms involved.
What?
And it was like, okay, where's this going? And finally, when he so-called got there, it wasn't worth the journey, right? So it's about finding those right journeys as well. On the flip side of personal stories being of value is that sometimes you don't realize the big things that are happening in your life as they show up as small stories, right? The person who comes home after this horrible day at work, everything has gone wrong, and then they sit down and they go like, you know what, I want to quit my job, and then the cat jumps on, and it changes the way he feels about things, for instance, right? It's a small crazy thing, but that is a little vignette that you can use to tell a corporate story as well. You can talk about how your clients may need just the right kind of thing come along when they need something. I mean, like, I'm sure you're feeling that as well right now.
I'm thinking of my cat when you said that,
Yeah,
and how my cat makes me feel when I come home.
yeah, but and here's the thing, I made that up completely. There's no basis of it. I'm just imagining it into reality. I was thinking about a situation like, how could someone have a personal story, a totally benign situation, and come up with something that could work, right? So yeah, that's the power of the story. If you figure out how to do it and you make it a habit. Look, like we mentioned in the intro, right? Over 60,000 stories. The actual number is higher than that, because those were just the stories that I decided to tell about something I read in the news, right? But every time I open my mouth about traffic, the weather, or the time, there is actually a story in play, right? And as I was doing what I was doing on the air, I always thought about it in terms of, what is this person doing right now? And I am playing in their story. So I'm telling them the time, and occasionally I'd say 17 minutes to go before top of the hour. I'd say 15 minutes before you be late. Or make sure, like, when the new year came around, I would talk about, remember to sign your checks with the right year, or tear the car park coupons, right? Those little things connect with the person in their life, because in that moment, they recall that moment, or they see it. So even if they don't even drive anymore, even if now we don't use parking coupons, I'll bet you there's someone who's watching right now who's just picturing
Tearing the
on those
little
coupons,
thing,
right?
yeah,
And that
yes.
feeling you get, like, wrong year, and then it's like,
And sometimes you tear a few at one time, right? And then, oh my God, the whole thing is wrong.
Yeah.
And you have to pay for those parking coupons. I remember to buy those.
But actually, if you tore them wrong, I think you can still go back there. You can actually take them back to the office. It's a bit of a problem. You can go there. You can go and take the ones that have been done wrongly or whatever, return them, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And I like what you're saying, because it also kind of brings me into this idea of, in order for us to tell good stories, there is quite a bit of like empathy involved, right? Putting yourself in the person's shoes and also asking yourself, what could this person be even worried about, as small as something like a parking coupon, because these are real things that we have to go through. So when we can kind of tell stories and kind of put ourselves in the position of that person's shoes, or if you are saying it from your perspective, then there's your essence, your truth, and your emotion. So, I want to talk about how people think that they are boring and they don't have interesting stories to tell. That's what I hear all the time,
Yeah.
even when I was kind of training a group of these like nursing ambassadors.
Yeah.
and they have to go out there to like the schools and to different companies to share about what they do and encourage people to join them.
Yeah.
And they are like, they've been nurses for years.
Yeah.
I feel like you've got so many stories to tell, the work that you do with the patients, the kind of challenging patients you have to experience and calm the family members down. And I feel that they have so much, but they have sort of a lot of people have this perspective that their lives are boring. So I guess my question to you
Yeah.
is, how do we go about like looking for stories and getting stories to tell if somebody says that my life is boring?
Okay, so the truth about life is that it can be boring. You can literally have a very boring life, right? But it doesn't mean you can't tell a good story around that. So there's some really great stories that are about boring people. I think I can't recall the movies right now, but I think A Serious Man, for instance, it's a movie that won an Academy Award. I think a number of Academy Awards, but it was about a reasonably boring guy, right? But the stories are basically about the details that come up in your life. So people do have boring lives because what they do is they settle all the drama, right? So at the end of the day, they say, what happened to you today? Nothing much, I didn't do anything. But if you think about those moments in greater macro detail, right? Getting up in the morning can be a story, right? I mean, you can feel so tired the night before and finally get to sleep, and then you close your eyes, and then next thing you know, you hear this blaring alarm, and you're going like, "Oh my God, have I slept at all?" And then you think, you know what, I want to just snooze, and you reach out and you realize that you can't see anymore because you're blurry-eyed, and you can't find where the bloody thing is, right? And then you finally you get to it, and you turn it off, and then you close your eyes again, and next thing you know, you're up again because you pressed the wrong button to snooze, right? So I've just described a few very boring details, but I've described them in a way which makes you go like, oh, okay, and then what happens next, right? Because storytelling is different from reporting what happened, right? So people tend to have this thing about, okay, if I try to do a rundown of my life, what's happened, it's a logbook kind of a thing that they think that they have to do, right? I tell you this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened, and for those who say that it's boring, they're actually right. Right? It is boring. So how do you not make it boring? You don't make it boring by looking at conflict, right? What's in the way? Stories essentially are about I want and you can't, right?
Say that again. I
want, but you can't. That makes it interesting, right? The boring story is I want to get up at 9 in the morning and I woke up at 9 in the morning. I want to get breakfast at 9:15. I got breakfast at 9:15. I want to have bacon and eggs. I got bacon and eggs. I went to the office. I wanted to go to the office and I got to the office, right? Nowhere along the way are you going like, okay, that was interesting, right? But it's the stuff like, I want to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning because of an urgent meeting, right? But next morning, I suddenly wake up at 9:30 and I realize my phone's dead because I forgot to plug it in. And I'm thinking, okay, I have to try and figure out how to get to the office. I can't even remember the office phone number anymore because my phone I've got to plug it in before it charges up and all that. I want to book a cab so I can get to the office. My phone's dead. Oh, damn. It's the I want, I can't. And as you're going back and forth, you are going hopefully closer towards the goal. And sometimes you actually are going to fail completely, but it's still a great story, right? So you can go like this, I'm doing this, I got all that, I solve all the problems and finally I get to the office and it's Saturday morning, I forgot. Right? And I think people have been there, right? I mean, I've woken up before in a shock, being like, okay, I'm late for work. I have to get out there. I hustle. I see my family around, and they're all looking at me. They're all confused, and I think, yeah, of course they're confused because I'm late for work and all that. And I dart out the house and I go downstairs, and it's about 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, and I'm thinking, oh, hang on, wait, I do a morning show, right? Because what happened was the start of this.
Did that happen to you?
Yeah, because the start of the story is I woke up and I thought, I need to be at work. I'm not there. I have to rush, and I look out. The light's about right for in the morning,
Oh
and I think,
yeah, because it's kind of in between, right?
yeah.
The
So you
time
go
when
like
okay, dawn.
you fall into that situation. So you have this big experience. It's a great adventure, and actually it's one of those things. You actually have the winning journey all the way. So you can have a story that goes the other way around as well. You completely win, but you win a game that doesn't count.
So it really sounds like even the littlest of things can make for storytelling, and it
Yeah.
got me thinking about a story that I actually told once, and I
Yeah.
actually thought about this years ago. So I do quite a bit of work on emotional resilience. So I was trying to ask myself, okay, how can I make my training interesting so that people are engaged? Use
Yeah.
some good metaphor. So I'm gonna get you to guess, okay? Because I kind of found this story in the craziest, not really crazy, it's quite a normal thing I feel, but then I found a story here. So A, my honeymoon vacation; B, clogged toilet bowl; and C, laptop that crashed.
Okay. Are you looking for stories in all three, or
Guess where I found my story from out of these three?
well, we're doing an interesting podcast, so it will be the clogged toilet.
Yes, it was definitely the clogged toilet. So this was what happened was my toilet got choked. No big deal. Okay, the
Yep.
only thing that was horrible was that the water kept rising, and
Yep.
at that time, thankfully, I'm a little bit constipated, so I don't poop that much. But the flushing was kind of rising up, right? And it was scary. So we called a plumber. The plumber came in, and then the plumber kind of just looked at it, tried to clear the choke a little bit. He cleared the choke. The toilet was fine.
Yeah.
2 days later, it started getting choked again.
Okay.
We called another plumber. We thought, hey, please solve the problem. He came in again, quick fixed, quick lock within 48 hours.
Right.
So we were so frustrated. And during that time, because, my husband was with me, my helper was with me, my parents come over, the whole house started to smell of shit.
No.
And
Okay.
it was almost unbearable. And we were trying to use like air freshener, but the toilet bowl was winning the war for sure.
Right.
And I told my mom, can you just please go and find somebody that's trustworthy that can really get this thing settled? So she called one of my uncles who knew another very experienced plumber who has been doing this job for 40 years.
Right.
He came in, and this guy was not just, unclogging the toilet bowl. He was literally investigating my toilet like it was CSI toilet bowl edition or something.
Yeah.
After that, he told me that, hey, do you know that the clog is not really in the toilet bowl? It's actually in your inbuilt bathtub. Yeah, and what he did was he literally smashed open the tile at the
Okay.
bathtub
Wow.
and cleared all the gunk, all the years of accumulated gunk
Yeah.
there.
From your hair.
From my hair, all sorts of gunk. I don't even want to describe what it is, but it was disgusting. So he
Right.
cleared that, and the toilet bowl actually got cleared as well.
Right.
Yeah, so it got me thinking, what can I use this story for? So I started relating it to kind of like emotional awareness and processing our emotions. And I use this metaphor as that when you don't process your emotions, what happens is that the years of gunk are stuck there.
Yeah.
You start to be a very stinky person and you affect everyone around you. And they totally got that metaphor. So my point to this is that sometimes our stories, like what you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
doesn't have to come from those like grand moments, right? It can be
Yeah.
these small little sticky situations. So how do we put together a good story? And you have been doing storytelling for years. So how do you test a story and to say that, hey, this is a good story for use?
Okay, so really good stories, especially if they're supposed to teach a particular idea or whatever, right? If they're really good, you don't feel the stretch. It's not a stretch to say story A and therefore the lesson B. It isn't a stretch. It isn't. I don't have to try to go like, okay, now if you look at it at this angle and you throw that away and you whatever, you can go, this actually kind of fits. So to me, that's the qualifying process, if you like, of whether a story absolutely fits. What you can do if that story doesn't absolutely fit is you change the story. Right? So that's the trouble with most people, is that they think, I want to tell you a true story about my life. And then they try to tell you the absolute true story of their life. Now, if you've sat in front of, one of your grandparents or someone like that, and they're telling you about something that happened in their life, and you've gone like, oh, this is really boring. Right? It's probably because they're talking about a significant moment in their life, but they're giving you a lot of information or detail that really doesn't move the story forward, right? So what can happen? Great storytellers, the really great grandparents among us, they tell really great stories, but they frequently lie. As in, like, if you talk about the real great stories your uncle tells, your friend tells, or whatever it is, and you listen in, like I do. Actually, I listen for the facts as well. I'm like, that's a great story, but it couldn't have happened, right? And that's a higher level, if you like, right? So, we were talking about, as we're preparing for this, what I'm currently working on, which I'm trying to think, how do I bring this to a market, right? I want to do a talk that is titled "Tell Better Lies," right? And it's because of this kind of thing. Because, and then if I can just pontificate a little bit about the idea, right? The world around us is absolutely a fiction, right? Everything that you hold to be true was at some point created by somebody. Someone made it up, right? What's the color of the jacket you're wearing? Someone made a sound that said this is supposed to be this, right?
Yeah.
In English, maybe it's blue. It may have come from the French word. Then you've got to go back there. But someone created that. Someone did all that kind of stuff. So the very thing that you hold to be true is actually a fiction. Business, language, relationships, yourself, all of it, something that you imagined into existence because something happened and you decided something was the meaning of it, and then you put it all together, and in the end, you have this story that you are part of, right? So the story of self, the story of relationships, the story of country, the story of money. So for me, therefore, everything begins with some sort of lie, right? So how do you then create that better? So one of the things that
Very intriguing.
I know,
Is
right?
that a class that you're going to be conducting?
I mean, it's a talk and idea that I'm trying to put out in the world, because people don't realize that is the reality that they face, that they are they feel defeated by the idea of telling a story because of this. The flip side, they think of this as in being true. Is it true? How are people going to see what I'm saying? They feel very uncomfortable with artistic license. And if I'm working in Singapore, for instance, right? The local audience has been brought up on this. Again, it's a different story, but the story is about, we must tell the truth. We're always transparent, upstanding, all that stuff, right? So it's a story, it's a framework. And because of that, they have great difficulty in doing things like saying, and in 10 years' time, we will have this. They can't even say, we will have this. They will predict forecasts, and they will say, like, it's likely to, these are the estimates. They have to qualify all those things to make it fit, right? I say, if you want to tell the story, right? Yeah, I'm here. My friends have come together, and we really thought to ourselves, we have to solve this problem. Otherwise, the world's going to be really terrible for a lot of people. And there's a whole bunch of money to be made as well. That's why in 5 years' time, we're going to be doing this. Right? It's okay, right? Because that's the plan you've got. That's the feeling you've got. And even if it's not true, what harm does it do? Right?
Interesting. It does sound like people, I don't know, in Singapore, maybe in this part of the world, they tend to be a little bit too careful.
Again, stories, right? So cultures. Singapore's like that. I would say the Germans are a bit like that as well. You have to say things that are factual, right? But there are ways to do it. There are ways to talk about stuff. Like when I was doing traffic reports on the radio, and we used to have to do them only when we had confirmed information, right? So this is the way it used to work. There would be an accident, then the accident would cause the traffic jam around the place. And somebody might see the accident, might call police, might call the traffic police, or you might have a patrol person detect the accident. They would have to go figure out that there is an accident, report back to Central that there is an accident, and then when there's a If they had reported, if the person reporting was a police person, then it would go into the report. If it was not a police person, they would have to send someone out to verify that it really happened, and then they go and put the report out, and
And
then
that
they
would
would
be
drop it.
crazy, too much details to go and add in
Well,
there,
never
right?
mind that. Then there'd be this thing about getting the telex done. Telex would go out to all the radio stations in duplicate, and then a convenient half an hour to 45 minutes later, there would be a traffic report that there was an accident, right? And that was because people had to say, I need it to be confirmed, it needs to be true, right? So how do you tell a story like that that's truthful? What I worked out was, what I could do is I could tell the truth, saying there's an unconfirmed report of an accident. So people could call me directly, and in the first instance, I could say, there's an unconfirmed report of an accident here, right?
I love how that simple word says it all.
Yeah, but it's
The
truthful.
unconfirmed report.
It's truthful. It's within the framework. It works so that people technically cannot say like, "Hey, you haven't confirmed it." Yes, I know. That's why I said it's unconfirmed, right?
Yeah, the wordplay is so cool.
Yeah.
It got me thinking about, I mean, even for a lot of times we watch movies and then they say based on a true story. And obviously we know not every single detail there.
Yeah.
It's 100% true. And I was just kind of doing a little bit of reading, and they were saying that when viewers watch movies, what are some of the first things that really hook them?
Yeah.
So, and the main thing is actually about emotion. So I have a question to ask you. Do you have like a movie or a story in a movie that you've watched that really, really emotionally connected with you? Can you think of any?
Well, the challenge is to think about it without crying. I mean, I have a strange reaction with tears. It's like I get overwhelmed by the art of something. So something can be really nice. So when I'm speaking, I will get caught by what people think is me being overwhelmed by the emotion of the moment. Oh, he's so sad because you're thinking about that. What I'm actually usually caught up with is I'm actually caught with how beautiful this moment is, right?
Wow.
So it's kind of, but it's you can get. I don't know whether you've actually wept when you see something really really nice, but that happens to me. So one of the shows that I recommend to people that had that impact on me, and I recommend to other people as well, is something called Pleasantville.
Pleasantville. Oh, that sounds very familiar.
Yeah. So it's Tobey Maguire. I know that doesn't make people have a lot of faith in the movie, but it's a movie of some. It's quite old right now, but it's just a story and a premise for things to happen. And if you were to look at the story, you just go like, this doesn't make sense. This is not real. Okay, so the premise of the story is these two people in real life somehow get sucked into a TV show in black and white. So the metaphor is such that you can draw it up. And the powerful thing about stories, and this is why one of the things I talk about in storytelling as well, is that you owe your audience a world for which the story must exist, right? So if you start telling a story, if it's a everyday story, you can just start and just talk, right? But if you're going to tell a story, let's say where mobile phones don't exist, where traveling is not as convenient as it is today, where all these things are going to happen, you can't just tell me a story without giving me that world. You can't build, you can't launch into it without giving me some way to understand that this world is different, right? So back in the 70s is a good way to throw people back and go like, oh, okay, I remember certain things about that. And that's why when someone wanted to call you, you had to be at the other end of an actual phone, right? So that people can go like, okay, I follow the rules. So world creation is very important. So like what Pleasantville does is it creates this world where you buy into it. They talk about suspension of disbelief as a big thing in movies. You must allow your audience, you must facilitate your audience to suspend their disbelief. So it's very it's all negatives there. But the idea is we are geared to try and figure out if this makes sense, or I can buy it, or I like this, or whatever it is, right? So we tend to have that reaction. Once we get in and once we say, yep, this is, I buy this, then we're okay, right? So if you think about like the idea of Star Wars, right? Back in the early days when Star Wars was first launched, you had two camps. You had people who go like, oh, this is so amazing. It's so cool. I see this is a wonderful world, and they understand the whole thing about the force and all that kind of stuff. And you have the people who are outside going like, what nonsense is this? Right? And both of them are right. But the world created inside of Star Wars is so complete that the fans of the story can participate in it and they can figure out what's likely to happen. So they don't have a day when when let's say back in the day, when Darth Vader has a choice to make, they don't go like, oh, I wonder if he's going to try and do something nice today. You don't have that. You kind of know, because the story world's been created, that he's going to do something that's evil, and you're waiting for how he's going to do that evil thing, right? So it's a world creation thing.
It is. You know, you got me thinking about what you said. You know, everything is kind of like a fiction, right?
Yeah.
And somebody creates it and then it goes into our mind and it becomes real to us. So one of the movies that really stuck with me, I was just thinking about this, even I was preparing, asking myself, you know, if I want to ask myself, out of the last maybe 5 to 10 years,
Yeah.
is there any movie that I have watched more than 3 times? And I immediately thought of this movie, a Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't know if have you watched that before?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
about the story
yeah.
of Freddie Mercury, and I think there were so many elements in there. And I was thinking, what is it about this show that made me feel kind of like so connected to it, right? So I mean, if you haven't watched Bohemian Rhapsody, it's really about the life of lead singer Freddie Mercury,
Yeah.
how he grew up as an outcast with bhakti, eventually being recognized for his singing talent, and then struggling with sexual confusion, drugs, and then getting HIV, diagnosed with HIV positive, and then died. So I asked myself, if I were to break it down, what were the elements that really kind of connected with me?
Yeah.
For me personally, the first one was the use of music. Yeah, I think there were a lot of beautiful songs in there. And I remember the song that he sang, that song Bohemian Rhapsody itself already conveys so much emotions.
Yeah.
There's like shame, there's fear, there's condemnation in there. And then there's the other song that he sang called Love of My Life, for his girlfriend at that time, Mary. And then he sang it at the concert hall, and he got the entire concert hall to sing it with him. That is like pure soul. Yeah, so I thought the interplay of music. So what I'm kind of bringing to the point is that, you know, sounds make a lot of difference, right?
Yeah.
When we are telling a story.
Yeah.
The second one was actually the dialogue throughout the show.
Yeah.
And there's the internal and the external dialogue. And one of the internal dialogues, and I will always remember this, is that at one point he actually told Mary, I am someone whom I've always wanted to be. And I'm no longer afraid of anything. And that's kind of like raw self-assurance and acceptance. And there's also the external dialogue of him telling his band manager, we are 4 misfits, performing for other people who are also misfits. So that really kind of connected with me, because I've always felt like somebody who didn't belong. So that spoke to my heart. And the last one was actually the characters portrayed in there.
Yeah.
From his girlfriend Mary, who eventually found out that he became gay, right? So he told Mary, he said, Mary, I think I'm bisexual. And Mary replied, Freddie, you're gay. So I think that how the relationships evolved from girlfriend to no longer girlfriend, and then becoming best friends and accepting who he was.
Yeah.
And then the last character was his parents.
Yeah.
How they struggled with his father not accepting who he is, because
Yeah.
you know he wanted Freddie to have a more respectable job, the mother supporting him, and at the end kind of like the emotional reconciliation. So I just thought the whole thing was so well thought through.
Yeah.
And it would have been a movie that I would watch over and over again, because I don't think it was just what's happening on the screen, it's kind of like what's happening in our heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we could study stories like that. And I know really kind of want to ask you, if a leader comes to you
Yeah.
and he says, you know, I'm going into a meeting soon in 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and I have a story, but I don't know how to tell it. Can you immediately give me some tips that can help me to tell the story well? What would be some immediate tips you would give to this
Okay.
person?
Yeah, so I was contemplating this idea about someone coming up to me and saying, I have a few minutes, I want to put a story into what I'm talking about. I've got to send them back to the drawing board and say, try another time. Not today. This is not the time to do it.
I don't like where this is going.
As you're talking about the Bohemian Rhapsody, for instance, right? And you think about it, and you are describing this beautiful thing with all the different steps and all the resolutions and everything, and you're saying it's such a perfect story, right? that's the kind of, it takes years for that perfect story to be written. And there's a reason why Freddie Mercury died all those years ago, and now
And the movie was made now.
well, I mean, there've been other movies to try and tell the story, but they've not been that great. The story wasn't as good, the acting wasn't as good, the music wasn't as good. So there's a lot of things that make for a great production, but the story needs to be very good as well, right? So the business leader who comes to me and says, "Oh, you know what? I've done everything, but I got 5 minutes more, so let me do a story." I'm going like, bro, it's too late to try and do it at this stage. Because first of all, a story needs to be strong in your head so that you can make it strong in somebody else's head,
I
right?
like that. Make it strong in your head so you can make it strong in other people's head.
Well,
right?
it has to start there. And then there are all these things about how am I going to do it. So how I describe what I do as teaching people to, first of all, not assemble. They're creating Lego bricks. First of all, right? I'm creating Lego bricks, but not in my head. I'm creating them in your head. And then what I'm doing for you is I'm helping you assemble those things in your head so that what happens in the moment is for you, you are putting the pieces together and suddenly you realize like, oh, it's a car, but it's in your head. So if you do a story, if you put a story together well enough and skillfully enough, it isn't from outside, it becomes from inside. So when you watch like Bohemian Rhapsody, right? And you talk about these inner dialogue stuff and all that, right? Where did that come from? That was in you.
It was
wasn't,
already in me. So
Yeah.
it was almost like there was a moment where I was living the story and
Right.
connecting with what he was going through. It was so weird, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, so all the Lego blocks have been put into your mind, your heart already, and you were building the desires of Freddie Mercury. You felt the things that would be complete, right? So that's what happens, and then what happens in the end is that you are now traveling within that story with these desires because you are now completely mirrored into the character. You want for this person to have all the things that it has, so that finally, when they get to the point where they get what they want, you feel this amazing sense of well-being and dopamine and all that kind of stuff that goes along with that.
The emotional roller coaster that goes along, and this
Yeah.
interplay of emotions was like, to me, it's profound beauty. I thought,
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
so much in there.
Yeah.
There's
So
so much in
so
there.
back to that executive that has 5 minutes, right? And he's wanting to do. If he has a time machine, that's when he should use it. Go back a few weeks, engage someone like myself or yourself, sit down, talk about what the objective is, and then we can mine their life maybe for stories. We can mine the world for stories. There's no harm using a movie as a story.
It's a metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. You can tell like Bohemian Rhapsody, for instance. If you want to tell a story, there's so many great stories within that big story, and if you are able to pick the right parallel, the right analogy for the thing that you're about to talk about, then it's great because people can understand that, right? So one of the things that I taught people to do is say, okay, if you struggle for really high-end stories, then let's start with nursery rhymes, right? If you have a business problem, let's take some nursery rhymes and try to figure out which nursery rhyme can be a metaphor for this business problem.
Really interesting. Actually, that guy, Hans Christian Andersen, he was the one who wrote Ugly Duckling.
Well, he wrote a bunch of them, yeah.
He actually came from the stories of his own life, right? And, like nursery rhymes and, these little stories from their childhood as well. So if somebody were to say, okay, but I really don't have the time to go and, dig so much deeper. And I mean, I need to tell story as part of my presentation because there's a company town hall coming up. Okay, maybe I would have 3 days to think about it.
Yeah.
But is there sort of like, what tips would you give me to sort of put this in place? Once I kind of find a story, what tips would you give to this person to put it in place?
So one of the things that people talk about in good storytelling is right to the end, right for the end. You need to know that this is the ending that must come out of this, right? For instance, if you think about what ultimately must happen, if you think about most great stories, great movies, is that the end is actually inevitable. you know it must end this way. There are only a few ways it must end. Harry Potter, for instance, right? If you think about what is the ending you must get when you're engaging with the Harry Potter story, is Harry Potter must defeat Voldemort and he must find happiness. This is where it must end. And then what you're gonna go is, okay, backwards you go like, okay, what are the things that are gonna get in the way of these things? And so you begin your journey to write. Of course, writing a novel and creating a whole universe, that's a whole different thing to a town hall meeting, right? But the town hall meeting can be now, okay, what I need people to do, I need people to feel a certain way about a certain thing. That's your end, right? That's where it needs to end. Then you go like, okay, so what can I do? How can I break apart that Lego model, right? Which is what I wanted to see. That okay, we have to buckle. We have to all come together and work really hard because our business is under threat, for instance, right? They have to have that model in place. Then you break it apart. Then you put the pieces down on the table and you go like, how do I then tell some kind of story that leads me to that point where I go like, that's what they see, right? The story, to be the analogy of it, right, is then to go, okay, right now as you're building it this way, next to it, you're gonna build the parallel universe. You're gonna build a thing that looks a little bit like that. And you'll find that if you're faced with any kind of, okay, so most business problems are actually very normal, right? You hardly get anyone who actually has a super complex business problem. You have a motivation problem, you have a turnover problem, you have a morale problem, whatever it is, right? Now, if you think about that, how many movies have you seen where there's a problem like that? So you know that there are metaphors that you can already borrow from. You can recognize the patterns. You will figure out that, you know what? Yeah, this thing that I'm trying to do reminds me a little bit of when I didn't believe in myself, when I felt doubt about myself. Ooh, okay. Oh, I'm a bit embarrassed to tell that story. And that's one of the things that I kind of advise people to do, right? If you feel that tinge and you go like, oh, this is that's a bit close to the bone or whatever it is, that's a great place to start. Because like you always hear this, right? I'm not supposed to tell you. What's your brain going immediately, right? Your brain,
I should tell.
your brain, the person who's hearing it is already. I want to hear exactly what it is. So there's a thing about that as well. We have a desire. We have a desire to confess. We have a desire to hear confessions, and if you put it out, if you start a confession on stage, people can't resist, right? They will have to lean in. There's a Steve Jobs moment when he's talking about the iPhone, right? And just before he does it, and you can see that he forgets to say it, and then he remembers to say it, and then he says, I couldn't sleep a wink last night. So that's the line that draws you in to go, why? And then he can tell you, because I was so excited. I can't remember the exact words now, but if you think about it, why does that belong in any presentation, right? It's like, yeah, why are you telling me these personal problems? You say, last night was the most difficult night I've ever had. I mean, I had done everything I should to have a good night's sleep, but just thinking about this morning's meeting, I just was too excited. So I can't wait to tell you what's on my mind, right? Now,
The way that you're saying it already connects with me. Already. So actually, it's not easy if you think about it. There's quite a bit of work and reflection, and probably, to me, I feel the word is like connecting with yourself, right? To be able to do that. So, I want to ask you. I mean, and this has happened with even some of the clients that I've worked with and coached before, and they tell me this. They say, I want to create impact in my stories, without relying on personal sob stories.
Yeah.
How can I achieve that? Yeah. So how would you answer this question, Joe? I mean, I do see it quite commonly among the more senior leaders, very often gentlemen, might not be comfortable for them to tap into certain vulnerable emotions. So, what tips would you give, or what advice would you give if somebody comes to you and they say that?
So there's two levels of advice. One is if that is the task you're giving me and saying I have to tell stories, but I can't tell my own personal sob stories. Fine. There's a whole world of stories that already exist. There are well-known stories, not so well-known stories. There's a movie that's out. There's a nursery rhyme. There's a song. There's a whatever. There's something already that will tell those stories. And so all you have to do is figure a way to tell that story. So you can say, there was once a man who was, there was once a woman who was, there was one dog who said to another dog, whatever. And you think about jokes. Jokes are actually a good joke is a story that you go like, oh, that's kind of fun. I like the premise of it. The world is good. Like, like you say like one weevil says to another weevil, they're in the rice pot and they're having a discussion about things. Once you create that and people can imagine that, you can start having that conversation and telling that story. So for that leader, they can borrow a story. But what I would say is the work to get comfortable with your own life, with yourself, so that you can be part of the story that you tell on stage is the next level, right? The fact that you don't want to tell this story, or you're afraid to tell the story, and let's just call it that, right? You're afraid to tell the story, is because you have to deal with something, right? Something has to be dealt with. It's unresolved. You're not really fully in control. So I guess therapize, right? Go look for therapy. You need to figure it out so that you can, first of all, even talk about it. And then in a way which way you're still emotionally detached enough from the gist of the story. So people can recognize that, yes, that was very challenging, but you're not overwhelmed by your own story in the moment.
You're not going on stage to get therapy from telling the story on stage.
You're not there to do that. So and that's what I personally have to work with, because again, I'm touched by the beauty of the stories I end up telling sometimes. It looks like I am in a mess because I'm so emotionally distraught over the thing that I've done, but frequently it's just because I've lost control of I've just been emotionally overwhelmed, but not in the way that people think. But then again, it lands on the other side, right? I'm building the bricks, I'm building the model in someone else's mind. You see this guy talk and then he cries, whatever it is, you will build something, and whether it's right or wrong, well, it's not your fault. I put it out there, right? So yeah, again, the business leaders, it's work, and you're right, it is work. And it's something that you really have to start thinking about. So don't do it in the last minute. The 5 minutes before is never a good time. All the time that you're going through your life, be open to stories. Be open to the things that happen along the way. I mean, like, and if you're looking out for it, you will be presented with them. Just hand over fist, right? I mean, on the way over here, right? Just coming here was a great adventure, a story for me. I got like, brilliant. It's going to be a story that I can tell on stage, right? I live down the road. I can literally see the building here, and I say to myself, okay, I want to arrive comfortable and on time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call a car. I'm going to call a Grab.
That comes from the other side of the country.
Yeah. And then I look at it again. Okay, there's a car coming along. Then I see, oh, hang on, wait a minute. It's coming from quite far away. Oh, it actually is coming from twice the distance past my destination to where it's going. I go, okay, fine. Okay, good. I'll look at it. No, 6 minutes. Fine, I think I'm going to be on time. Right. Then I go and get my stuff, get ready, put my shoes on, look at the thing, and then I see that this guy, because you can see where it is, the guy's gone the wrong direction. You think, oh no, I'm going to be late. And you keep thinking about the embarrassment of it. I'm literally close enough to see my destination. I'm waiting for a car, which is very late, and I'm supposed to be here to do a podcast at a certain time, right? And I'm being very unprofessional by showing up so late. And this time is getting worse and worse and worse, right? We get close. We get to the traffic light just before we do the U-turn to come here and drop me off. And instead of doing a U-turn, he turns right because on his GPS, it says the building is down the road. Are you serious? So little moments like that. It's like
Yeah.
things happening along the way, and what do? You know? And then as he's coming here, as he's studying, he's explaining to me, I'm like, don't worry about it. I don't worry about I don't know about reason. I don't care about the reason. Just get me down. But you know, for me, that's gonna go down as an idea that I can tell as a story, as an example, like I just did. Which is interesting. People actually are vested in it because they have, and we spoke about this as we talking about preparing for this, right? People have a handle on that emotion. We can very easily, you know, relate to someone who wants to go somewhere. He's trapped in a car driven by somebody else, and you wish you could drive, but you can't, and you have to let someone else drive. And you had to give in to it, and you just go like, I need to go there, but he's going here, and those feelings, they're so familiar. You've got your own version of it, you know, boiling up. I can see behind your eyes.
No, I mean, I'm just listening to what you said. I'm just sort of crystallizing it in my thoughts, you know. So what's going to be helpful if somebody would ask me that question? I think the first one is freaking do the inner work. If you cannot connect with yourself, go for therapy. If you can connect deeply with all the shit that you've gone through, since this is the Own Your BS show, people will be able to connect with you. It's almost like even in Bohemian Rhapsody, Freddie Mercury has to sort of come to the end of his own truth, and it really connected with the audience like me, right? So that was one. The second thing is, how can we find the conflict between where we want to go and why we can't get to that destination that we want? And the third one is that it doesn't always have to be sob stories. What you just told me connected with me, and it was hilarious, right? Yeah, so stories doesn't have to necessarily make you sob or cry, but it has to make you feel something. Feel a tinge of, like, you know, being tickled. It could be frustration. It could be some profound moment of realization. So I do want to kind of reiterate that stories doesn't have to be sad with a broken arm and a broken leg and the rags to riches. You know, these are some of the very traditional classic ones.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to that. And I've learned quite a lot from you today. So thank you so much. So I like your powerful insights, and we really want to do the fun engagement segment right now. So we are going to ask each other the quick fire questions.
Okay, so this is where you've relied on me to do homework, right?
Yes, a little bit. And it can be random, okay?
Interesting
I don't mind. So we are going to take turns to ask each other quick fire questions, something that's kind of related to storytelling. So do you want to start? So you ask me one and I'll ask you one.
Okay, so of the kinds of movies you like to watch, what is your favorite kind of movie?
Oh, wow. Anything with musicals, anything that's songs. I like things that are a little bit dark. I don't know why. So like the Bohemian Rhapsody, the Baby Reindeer, that kind of really gets to me. I'll think about it for days and it messes my mind up, but I enjoy pondering over it.
Well, maybe your toilet isn't fully clean yet.
Maybe. Okay, what's the most embarrassing story you've ever told that actually won your audience over?
I actually don't tell embarrassing stories. That's the terrible thing about me. But I have lived those moments. So when Boy George and Culture Club were in Singapore and performing, we were a radio station, and we had to be MCs before the event started. You know, in the indoor stadium, we were running with energy as you always do for these things on the very smooth floor, and then we changed directions, and my feet went in the same direction, so I fell flat. On the ground with a mic.
In front of Boy George?
No, in front of a packed indoor stadium, and in that moment you just go like blah, and you feel really bad because you are hurt. But what you have to do is, for the audience, you need to make sure that everyone feels that everything's okay. Right?
That's the toughest.
I just got up. I was okay.
Do you think?
And it became
the deep and powerful Oz is here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the interest of time, we're just going to make it 3 questions, okay?
What's the most disappointing thing you've heard as a story?
What's the most disappointing thing I've heard as a story?
That doesn't qualify.
Can I say that when something is just very expected? Yeah, there's no twists and turns at all, and it's exactly what I expected it to be in terms of like a fairy tale ending. To me, that is boring. I'd rather go drink a beer.
Yeah.
So I'd rather not do that.
That's good.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you the next one. Would you rather tell a story of your bowel movements or a story of a sex life?
Because the lack of it is actually so much more interesting. I can do the sex stories anytime.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You want to ask me last one and then I'll give you one.
It has to be about stories. Okay. When was the moment that you found out that you had a story to tell?
That is such a good question. When I decided I wanted to become a speaker.
Okay.
Because all this while I've had tons of stories because I'm quite a dramatic person by nature, but I never thought that I would tell anyone, right? I've just had a lot of all this, gunk and the toilet bowl thing that's uncleared. So when I realized that I wanted to be a speaker, I had to work through that therapy to connect with some of my stories and to start to tell them. But it has been a very therapeutic and cathartic experience for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no regrets at all. Okay, I'm going to ask you this last one. What's one story you heard that literally changed the direction of your life?
So it's not so much, and this is the one that's going to be tough to tell. It's not so much that I heard it, I lived it, right? So we lived in a pretty nice home in Brunei. My father is a magistrate, and they put us up in these government homes, and all the bedrooms are nicely done with parquet flooring and stuff like that. When I was a kid, I had no idea this was fancy, but now in retrospect, yes. So what I had done is also began to practice the art of knife throwing. I learned how to do it, and I can throw, and I can still do it pretty well. But where I practiced it was on the floor. So I was throwing knives on the floor, and basically after weeks of doing that, the entire parquet floor in my room had little holes everywhere. Just crazy. And then my mom comes to find out that this is the case. This has happened. And I mean, this is from a time when it was very okay to do. She got so mad and so upset, and she basically just gave me a walloping, just caned me. And it's all about this terrible, terrible disappointment and anger. And I'm of course like going like, oh man, this is at the time you're just thinking, okay, this is the stuff that I've done. Oh goodness, fine. And then I think it's over. Everything's finished. And she then walks into another room in the house. This is my room that she's just seen. And then in that other room, she discovers that I've also been practicing on that floor.
Oh.
Right? And instead of coming after me to give me more, so she just collapses. So this is stuff that hard to process. So she just collapses and she can't take it. And for her, you just know she's disappointed. Pure disappointment. And I can trace it all back to that day. That's the day I became a better person. I'm not perfect yet, but that's the day I began to move strongly in a good direction. Yeah.
Thank you so much for telling that. Are you all right?
Yeah. It's okay. It's just gas.
Thank you so much for being so brave to share that. Yeah, and I know this is something very personal and very heartfelt for you. So thank you for doing
Yeah,
that.
you're
We can
welcome.
edit that out if you're not comfortable. So
No. Perfectly fine.
but we should really wrap up. And
Someone should stop cutting the onions, please.
But I do just want to say, I know I've learned so much from you, Joe. Thank you for coming here, for sharing with us your storytelling insights, from your decades of experience and from your personal life as well. I think the audience has learned a lot, and so have I. Yeah, so I'm just going to very quickly wrap up. To our viewers today, what's a story that you have been hesitating to tell? And what's one thing they're excited to apply from what you've heard from us today? So remember, your mess could be your message, and your struggle could be someone else's strength. So thank you for tuning in to your Own Your BS show. I'm Cindy Tian, and I'll see you in the next episode.
This is a beautiful look.
Are you okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Can I get you some tissue?
Just tissue will do, yeah. No, it's just it's all the stuff that you have to work at and overcome. It's part of the storytelling thing. Forget.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank